It's not like you need to set, okay, for the next 5 years, I'm going to be this. It's like, whatever you want to be it in the moment. Oh, yeah, so I used to think...
Whatever you want to be it in the moment. Ted Carr, you cannot just be an athlete in the moment. It's years and years of hard work. You cannot just be a painter or a sculptor in the moment. You cannot just be a medical doctor in the moment. And let's take it back to language learning. You cannot speak Laotian, or you cannot speak Thai or Burmese or Sinhalese or any of those languages in the moment. Years and years of hard work. Dedication over a period of decades. And you know what? You can't be engaged in politics in the moment. Because politics, you deal with things that is a legacy going back at least 100 years, and you got to look forward 100 years also. You got to know the history, you got to know the historical context, you got to know the background politically to what's going on, and you got to think about consequences. Those things take place on a totally different fucking time scale. But even sticking with your shitty choice of examples, Ted Carr, no, fuck you. Meet and talk to a real sculptor. Somebody's put in the time and had their hands torn up blowing glass. Have you met and talked to glass blowers? I have. Have you met and talked to people who work with fucking bronze casting? Fuck Jesus Christ.
That I was going to be a writer. But before the technology...
So again, so he just said before his dream was he was going to be a writer. And then he put in quotation he was going to be a writer. And actually his bio, the only bio I could find, refers to that he spends so many hours a day working on his writing. Okay? And this is the sense in which his philosophy, it's partly supposed to be recommendations for you because you take his advice so seriously. But it always seems to come back to, it's so tightly bound to this self-justification. The fact that he's a fucking loser, that he never became a successful writer. He's never written anything that anyone wanted to read or buy or publish. Right, Ted? So now we're going to get the justification for why he wanted to be a writer, but he didn't have any ambition, so he dropped out of university, and he's never really written anything. He just takes off his shirt on YouTube.
Before there was pens and pencils, you weren't a writer. You were maybe an artist who did some cave paintings, but there was no identity, there was no label as he's a writer, she's a writer, they are a writer. So people didn't have to come up with, oh, I'm going to be a writer. They didn't have the technology. No, when the technology first came out, then people started to adopt that job title and think like, I'm going to be a writer. So now we're moving away from the pen and paper. A lot of kids don't even know how to write anymore. They're learning to type on iPads, learning to read and write on iPads, on iPhones, on laptops.
The whole manner of his fucking speaking here. I'm just saying, if this was someone I was speaking to face to face, I would just stand up and walk out of the room. I wouldn't insult him. I wouldn't criticize him. I wouldn't reply to any of this. I would just leave the room. Okay, Ted, so this is why you gave up on your life stream, on your ambition, your incredibly modest ambition of being a writer, right? That's what I'm hearing here, right? And why everybody else should just be a fucking dropout loser with no ambition like yourself. Why everyone else should go to Thailand and live a fruitarian diet and live for their joy in the moment, blah, 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 instead of pursuing their ambition. Critique of identity, that being a writer. Yeah, you know what, Ted? I've known people who were professional writers, and they had ambition and they had pride in the fact that they had a resume, they had a CV where they could walk into an office of a for-profit business in Hollywood and say, I'm a writer. I want to work for you. I want to do. They could walk into a newspaper office and be taken seriously. Yeah, you know what? Some people have that as an identity tag because they made the sacrifice. They paid the price. They have years and years of hard work in pursuit of that ambition. And they have a resume that says, I am a writer. Even if they had to work in a coffee shop or do other jobs, etc., so they could pursue that dream. Where they had an ambition and a dream that drove them. And the result is they take on that identity of saying, I am a professional writer. And that's something you're never going to understand, Ted, because you're a professional loser on permanent vacation.
So eventually it's going to be phased out altogether. It could be phased out altogether. Not saying it will be for sure, but it definitely, it's the pen.
No, Ted. It'll never be phased out altogether. Never. Even though there's so little money in writing. Even though many of those people have 2 resumes. People are going to have a CV that says, I'm a writer. I want to be taken seriously. Here's why. And you'll never understand that, Ted. Because, again, as far as I know, you're just a born rich loser. You're just a Bruce Wayne who never had any interest in becoming Batman. No, just say 2. Because I just said, I met a lot of rich people doing humanitarian work, met rich people in museums. And even when you met rich people who didn't really understand what they were doing or why, when you met a rich person who was donating money to an art gallery because they wanted to provide art education to poor children, really, those people exist. And you think, Is this really the best way to spend millions of dollars teaching children how to paint a picture in downtown Chicago or in Cambodia or whatever? Actually, I remember one example of that from Laos too. People were raising money, donating money related to art galleries and fine arts. You know, whatever. My opinion is irrelevant. You meet rich people, and maybe their idea of how to help the poor is kind of fucked up. It's kind of ineffective. There was also this whole charity I could talk about where they were obsessed with digging wells to give people drinking water. And a lot of time it was like, they come to a village, they already have enough drinking water. They don't need a new well. And you're coming here and digging a well, and then there were environmental problems. They had problems with the well water being poisoned. There were all these problems because these people didn't understand the actual scientific elements. You know what, though? When you meet those people, at least there are people who've inherited money, and they have some concept of trying to make the world a better place. Those people are infinitely better than you, Ted Carr. You're making the world a worse place, and you're trying to pull others in to your fucking pathetic downward spiral of self-justification for why you've never even bothered making the world a better place.
How dated that shit is. So in the future, there might not be writing, and the way of expressing yourself could just be through making videos. Like, this technology did not exist, or maybe it did in very crude form, 10, 15 years ago. But now it's so commonplace. We see little 2-year-olds making videos on their iPhone, and 4-year-olds making Snapchats and everything, and it's crazy. So video is a new mode of expression, and it's people are tuning into. People hardly read anymore these days. When you go to a news article website, you see the big paragraphs used to be big chunks of paragraphs. Now paragraphs, when you open a newsletter or you go to a blog or something, paragraphs.
Why do you think you say that, Ted? People hardly read anymore these days. Could that be about you, Ted? Could it be that you hardly read anymore these days? Who do you think hardly reads anymore these days, Ted? Losers like you? I know a lot of people who read, Ted. I know a lot of hardworking people who read, Ted. You ain't one of them.
It's like a sentence each. Each paragraph is a sentence. Paragraph, 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 paragraph. Because people just want short chunks of information. So watching videos, typically you can break it up and it's just easier to passively consume this information. So anyways, that's point number one. Big point there. I used to express myself through writing. Now I do it through video. It's just so much easier. Pick up the camera and film. There's something magical about writing. I love writing, I love editing writing, I love making those sentences just perfect, but video is just so much easier to get out there quick and easy. The second point I want to make, though, is that we've heard this before, but let's see it in a different way, and that is, we don't know what we've got till it's gone. They say you don't know what you've got till it's gone. Like when your girlfriend breaks up with you, you're like, oh man, I didn't know what I had until she left. Or when your boyfriend breaks up with you, you say, oh, I didn't know what I had until he left. And for the gender-neutral people out there, you say, oh, I didn't know what I had until they left. And with raw food and cooked food, especially, you know, dead animal products, the state I'm in right now, I'm totally just content. I'm totally just, I feel normal, completely neutral, feel fine. When you first get on raw food, like you're not used to feeling just totally normal. It always is either some digestion things going on, or some fatigue happening, or some high that's happening. But when you get on raw food and you start to feel completely normal, after a while you just become so oblivious to how good you feel, or how normal you feel, that you've got to kind of just slip up and go back to cooked food to feel that, oh shit, like that's how I used to feel like. You don't really appreciate the stability of being on a raw food diet until you go back to cooked food and feel the roller coaster of it.
The topic of this video is discovering your life calling and career. This has been the longest 4 minutes of my life trying to force myself to listen to Ted Carr without interruption. I'm gonna bring it back to my leitmotif and end this video now. I'm really glad I didn't discover Ted Carr earlier in my YouTube career. This is like fucking kryptonite to me. This is like the antithesis of everything I believe in and care about, man. And it's within veganism. And I know it connects to a lot of other things that people believe in and talk about within veganism. All right? Ambition gets a bit of a bad name because people so often associate ambition with a narrow focus on just earning as much money as possible. And that's really not the meaning of the word, okay? Ambition can be many things. whatever your moral aspirations are in life, whatever your moral code may be, it is meaningless without ambition. And on some level, I think it's genuinely dangerous to have people like Ted Carr on the internet glorifying a life devoted to self-indulgence, a life devoted to short-term pleasures, a life totally devoid of ambition, but a life that is at the same time praised and promoted as if it adhered to the highest standards of morality, as if it represented the highest calling for human beings imaginable, as if the highest and greatest and grandest thing you could possibly do with your time, with your talent, with your money, is to resign yourself to just being happy at any cost, as if the best thing you can do with your adult life is to snuff out your personal potential and commit now to the permanent vacation.
À-bas-le-ciel.